Cheers and welcome to episode 18. So during this episode, what we're going to do today is kind of take you through the beginnings of the brewing process like we generally do. Then at the end, I'll post the tasting notes from the foam cup and kind of talk you through some of the things that I learned, some of the things that I'm going to do to alter my process based on the feedback that I've gotten, and just a little recap of what the beer was to me, what the beer was to the judges, and kind of where it landed, and then that will influence kind of the future batches of this beer, how I adjust it, and how I strive to make this beer unique, flavorful, extreme, robust, and enjoyable. So that the people that I serve it to will have that sort of lasting impression of, wow, this is a great beer. I think it's already there to the majority of the people that I serve this beer to because they're not used to the flavorful craft beers that a lot of enthusiasts know. But I think that what I want to do is make those beers so that it's always pushing the envelope no matter who drinks it, and it always makes you want to come back and say, wow, that was a great beer. So anyways, enjoy the episode, post your thoughts, comments, and all those tidbits at the end in the comments section of flowbrewing.com. Hope that this is useful, interesting, and helpful for those starting out to brew, and hope you enjoy it. So cheers.
Welcome to Flow Brewing. This is episode 15. Today we are making the starter for a porter that we'll be making. We've got our porter recipe locked in where we like it. But we are going to experiment with yeast today. So we are going to build this starter. We're going to have two 2,000 ml flasks of starter solution. And in one we're going to use a Belgian ale yeast, WLP 550. And another we're going to use the British ale yeast, WLP 005. The porter that I've got my recipe dialed into is actually with the American ale yeast, WLP 001, but I've got some of that bottled, and I want to see how these two yeasts do with the same recipe. I'll get into the details of the actual porter recipe here in a little bit, but we came up just a few points short on dry malt extract. We were looking for 340 grams. We only got to 320, so we're about 20 grams shy. So our starter may be just a little short, but nothing that's going to dramatically affect the yeast growth. So we'll get this into the pot. We're going to boil it for 15 minutes, and then we will get it into our flask, which are hard to see right there, but you can see them. So we will check in on the water, and then we will get this. Well, just took my refractometer reading of my starter, and got to get the process dialed in a little bit better. We hit 1032 instead of 1.04. We have both yeast pitched and marked, so we've got our 550 and our 005 right there. So going to let those go overnight, and going to brew tomorrow, and then depending on once we hit our temperatures, we'll pitch them. So looking forward to doing this batch. Alright, welcome back to Flow Brewing. Today we are starting to warm our water. As usual, getting a little bit later start than expected. I started to heat up some water and then realized that my pot wasn't clean enough, so I dumped it out and re-cleaned the whole thing again. Filled up 20 gallons and added a Camden tablet to kind of stabilize the chlorine and get the pH levels right. I anticipate that the pH will be about 5.4 of the mash, but I'm still looking for a good testing kit so that I can actually evaluate that. Having some problems with the burner today. I'm not getting very good heat and I can't get the right air mixture on the burner. So we'll see how long this takes to heat up. Looking forward to this brew today. We were going to try an advanced technique. I am going to actually buy a grain mill, start milling my own grains, because now that I no longer have a good brew shop like we did in Springfield, Missouri, when I went to the brew shop, I gave them specific instructions: keep the chocolate malt and the black patent in a different bag, because I was going to mash those in the last 15 minutes and sort of whirlpool it or stir it up, and then try and prevent some astringency, and then go ahead and sparge out, so that way I get the color without the astringency from having it in the mash the entire time. They decided to go ahead and put it all in one bag, so I can't do that. And I spent quite a bit of money on grains, so I did not make them redo it. They did not offer to redo it. So just disappointing. I'm going to start buying my products online, and then I will get my own grain mill. I'll weigh my own grains, because they did not provide the amount of grains and an itemized receipt for the grains in the batch. So, you know, I wasn't there watching them while they did it because there was a line, so I gave them the recipe and then had them go ahead and put the grains in the sack. And so I actually don't know if my recipe's right. So what I would encourage you homebrewers out there that are trying to actually make very good beers, and you're kind of past the point of the beginning steps, is to buy your own grain mill and do it yourself, or make sure that when you get the products that they're itemized out, weighed out, and then you can weigh them yourself to validate that you do have the right amount of ingredients. Because you're going to get recipe inconsistency if you've got a brew shop like what happened to me, where they just throw everything in the bag and you don't really know if they got 3 or 3.2 pounds of Munich malt or whatever the case may be. So looking forward to a good brew day. I expect this beer will taste good because the variant shouldn't be too high on my ingredients. It'll taste the same as the last time I made this batch, because I mashed in the dark grains during the entire mash, even though I don't get conversion. And I didn't have a problem with that. The recipe turned out great. I'm just looking to sort of dial this thing in to get the best flavor possible. So we will have to brew again. I'm sure that this will make a good beer, assuming that I get a good boil. This is going to be a large batch. I'm going to be doing boiling 14 gallons, bringing it down to 12, and then filling up my pot. So looking forward to it. I'm going to start getting the rest of my stuff ready, and then we'll be talking about the process, tasting the grains, and going through some tips and tricks as we kind of go through this beer. So, talk to you. Here we have all our grain, so let's give it a little taste test here. Just try and get a combination of it. Man, it's perfect. It's got that dark roasted character that you expect, and some sweetness in the background with the crystal and the pale malt. So again, because the brew shop doesn't itemize it, I don't know what kind of two-row, if it's from raw. I believe, I don't remember where they get it from. So anyways, I've asked her, and I'm not sure that it's the same each time, but good two-row base. It's got some crystal in there, some Munich, and then some chocolate and black patent, and it's got the perfect roasted balance. So looking forward to getting this water in there and getting it mashed in. At the AHA conference, they had a really cool setup where they had a PVC pipe that came in with a bit that you used to dig in for gardening, an auger, and it slowly fed the grain in, and then you injected liquid into that line. so you could wet your grains as you mashed in. And studies have shown that you get better efficiency and flavor contribution from your grain when you do that. So something that I'm looking into. It's kind of a time, money, and space issue. I'm working on getting a better building to where I can set this all up in. So looking forward to doing that, doing some experimentation like that. But for now, we're just going to slowly add grain, start adding water, and get mashed in. So talk to everybody. All right, we are mashed out, and our final temp here, which you cannot see because I believe I have fogged up my camera, is 142. And so, actually 143. And we turned on our burner as we're mashing out, and we're actually going to be, it's not really caramelizing, but just getting a little bit more of that melanoidin reaction while we can at the bottom part. And I can smell it kind of scorching. And I'm not sure if that's a good or bad thing, and we will see the end result. But we're just slowly trickling out of there, and we'll be boiling at the bottom of this pot. And then we will, once we get our 14 gallons in here, we'll take our hydrometer reading. And this is really going to speed up our brew day and our time to boil, because this is going to be smoking hot the entire time. I'll be taking hydrometer readings by my little dipper that I'll be taking a sample, and then we will be measuring that as we fill the pot, so that we don't overshoot our gravity. And I'm going to back the heat way down. I think I had it a little too high, but hopefully we don't scorch that on there too bad. And we'll just have a nice little boil down there, and pleasant little mash out. And we'll see how this goes. I do have my sparge water up top here ready to go, and we'll kind of take this one step at a time. And we mashed out at 126. We let this go an extra 20 minutes to get some more conversion since it got so cool. I'm contemplating getting another burner for my mash tun when I get my pump, so that way while I'm recirculating I can turn on the heat and measure the temp, and hopefully it'll keep me from overshooting too much. And then I'll just need to play with the system. So I just got to round up a little bit of money and time, and then we'll be doing that shortly. So I'm going to keep monitoring this, and we'll check in with everyone here in. All right, so I'm hoping that we've got enough propane, but you can see this has been boiling like crazy since we started, and I'm really excited to kind of understand what the flavor contribution is going to be, because we are straight boiling this without any hops. So it's basically just kind of fusing the sugars with the amino acids and the proteins, and going to make a very, very syrupy concentration, nice sweet body. And we should have very, very good conversion from the grains, because we were cool. We were between 151 and 142 the entire time. So assuming that they converted correctly, which they should, we'll take our hydrometer reading, but this could be a really good beer. And it's even more exciting that we got two different ale yeasts to pitch. I would like to have pitched the American as well, but decided to go with the British this time. And you know, we'll taste it out. I'm probably changing too many things since I'm changing my process and the yeast, but you know, I just want to make the best beer possible, so we can come back and do this exact same process and pitch the American and the British, depending on how we like the British and the Belgian this go around. So we have fogged up the camera yet again, but our hot water is holding, and the sparge is nice and slow. We're just barely trickling it out there, and you can see down here. Well, my camera's too foggy, but you can see we've still got a nice bed of water, and we are practicing the batch sparge technique. Just want to get all the water out of the mash tun first, and then we will work on getting additional water in there, recirculating it, letting it sit 15 minutes, and then we'll let it. Alright, we went ahead and pitched the hops. We're on boil. We took our first refractometer reading. It was at 1.080, so we are way over our target, which is good. My thought process here was this has been boiling for a while, so we might as well go ahead and get the bitterness going in there. We're going to go ahead and add our sparge water to get to our target volume. We only have about 8 gallons in here, so we are going to shoot to get this to right about 13 actually, because we've already boiled some liquid off. And then we'll take another hydrometer reading, and then we will boil for probably another 60 minutes. This is the first time I've used this technique. I really like it so far. So we're going to mix up our mash here and start adding to our pot, and then we'll finish. Alright, we boiled off about a half gallon during that 15 minutes. So we're going to account for that and only go to 13.5 gallons, and then we'll boil this until we get to 12.5. And then we'll start filling our carboys. Our sparge finished at 152. We mixed it up, and I may be running a little hot there, so I can back it down, but not bad. The color is very good, and it's working very well. And here you can tell it's quite a bit lighter. We're just going to keep adding it to here until we get to our target volume, and we'll continue taking refractometer readings to make sure we don't overshoot, and then we're just going to boil for 60 minutes. Alright, it's 3:55. We've started cooling. We've got our hose running here. Everything's working well. Unfortunately, it started to rain, so I put the cover to try and minimize the amount of rain that gets in the pot. It's not raining hard, but that's okay. I still don't like it. You know, there's really nothing that I can do about it at this point, except maybe that. And that's a little counterintuitive because I'm trapping heat in there and also trying to cool it. But you can see we've already knocked off at least 20 degrees, actually almost 30 at this point. We did not boil much off, just 1/4 of a gallon. I've decided that I've got way too much space between my burner and the pot, so I need to modify these stands and mount the burners underneath them so I can boil right there. So just more to do, but works fine for 5-gallon batches, but when you start getting to these bigger batches, you just don't really get enough heat to be able to get that boil like you want it. But I did get a good boil at the very beginning on my first running, so we're going to let this cool for a little bit longer, take our hydrometer reading, and get this in the carboys ASAP. It's 9:32 into the brew day. I did a few other things after I cleaned up, but I forgot to grab my refractometer reading, so I took this and siphoned it out of the carboy, and I feel like that some star sand must have got in there or something, because it's reading 1045, and I was at 1065 pre-boil, so something's not right. Pitched my yeast. My British yeast pitched great. When I pitched my Belgian yeast in 5 gallons, a lot of the yeast stuck to the bottom of my starter, and I just couldn't get it out. Didn't have a good way to do that. So hopefully I got enough yeast content with what I did pitch in the Belgian. We'll see how it ferments, and I'm going to go with 1065 as my number, I guess. I don't really know, but we'll know if this tastes similar to the one that I got on tap now. It's frustrating, but anyways, let's go ahead and have a taste test, see where we're at. Got a nice chocolate nose. I get some of the Summit hops in the nose. Got good bitterness, and I get the roast in the background, a lot of bitterness. You know, as they say, the yeast will take away the bitterness. I'm not sure the exact reaction that takes place, but if you taste your beer and it tastes really bitter pre-fermentation, and you taste it after and it's got the right balance, that's the yeast absorbing some of that bitter flavor. But this, great flavor. So I've got no concerns with it whatsoever. I know it'll come out good, especially on the British yeast. The Belgians, the experiment, and it's unfortunate that I didn't feel good about the pitch, but I had a great starter, and so we'll see how she turns out.
Cheers, welcome to Flow Brewing. Today, recording in standard definition, having some problems with my camera, and actually getting a new one, so thanks for bearing with us. Tonight, we are going to be tasting and recording more on the Dickey's Ale. We got our foam cup results back, which is exciting. A little bit disappointing. You know, went into the competition and wanted to do well. I do think we did well, but not. I think that's why I need to enter more of these, and this has been good for me because it's really forcing you to put your product out there, put it out there on a schedule, and deliver a result. It's really easy to know something, it's really easy to read about something, but it's a lot harder to execute, and you have to execute across the board. I like to have all my data and my data points. I know a lot of brewers that do very well where they have spent the time to collect the data, but I'm kind of going the extra step by publishing this and talking through what I'm doing. And maybe it's a little bit inspired by the Brewing Network. Maybe it's just because, I don't know, just because I like to do it. So anyways, let's get into this. So some facts about the foam cup in this beer. There were 753 entries total. The highest scoring beer was a 46.5. The average score was 30.5. We'll talk about that here in a bit. The average gold medal score was a 42, which is very, very good. Average silver medal was a 39. Average bronze medal was a 39. 208 total brewers with an average of 4 entries per brewer. 74 homebrew clubs represented across 32 states. So I have been, since I moved to Oklahoma City, I was in Kansas City. I was a member of the KC Beermeisters, although when I was up there, I was just really kind of getting into home brewing since I lived in London, England, prior to actually being in Kansas City. And originally from America, but so got back, started going to the KC Beermeisters, but you know, for various reasons, didn't get to go to too many of the meetings, but really thought it was a great club. Really appreciated how Bacchus and Barleycorn supported that organization and that group, and I love the competition that they do every year. Since then, moved to Oklahoma City. Now I'm going to the Red Earth Brewers meetings. I really like that group. It's great. You can find a link to their website, and I'll update my website so that their Facebook information's all there as well. So they had a great representation at that competition. Here we had Ross Harper, Julie Bennett, Zach French, and Wes Glinsman. all place. Sorry, Wes, I butchered your name. But anyway, so they all placed, did very well, and it's real exciting. So I think it's important to enter these things because it gets you, at least if you're wanting to take your beer to a new level, share your beer with other people and get some practice and feedback about that. That is what this competition's all about. With that being said, let's get into. I entered a Belgian Pale Ale, which we'll talk about later. That one, but this one was the Robust Porter. The final assigned score was 31. It was in category 12, subcategory B. The order in the flight was 2 out of 10. It did not advance to the mini best of series round, and the first taster was a certified BJCP judge. And so, anyways, nothing on the descriptors got marked. Overall, it was in the very good category. The way that they do this at the competitions, you got 45 to 50 is a world-class example of the style. 38 to 44 exemplifies style well, requires minor fine-tuning. 30 to 37 is generally within style parameters, some minor flaws. 21 to 29 misses the mark on style and or minor flaws. So beyond that, you start getting into off flavors or major style deficiencies, unpleasant, and then 0 through 13 is major off flavors and aromas dominate, so hard to drink. Mine was in that very good category. So here it says bottle inspection, appropriate size, cap, fill level, label removal, etc. No comments there. On the aroma, he noted roasted malt, moderately strong, some coffee, moderate hop aroma, low esters, soft ethanol. So 7 out of 12 on the aroma, pretty good. Appearance, 3 out of 3. Very dark brown in color, some haze. So dark, nearly opaque, ruby, light, moderate off-white head with moderate head retention. So that's all seen here. You can't see any of the ruby in this standard def camera, but you get the idea. It is opaque and dark. Flavor. This one is what's killing me. It's only 10 out of 20. This is where I've got to really up the game. This one is moderate roast malt with some good toast, supportive hop bitterness, light hop flavor in the finish. Finish is fairly dry. So all positive notes, nothing there that suggests why I only scored 10, but I think we'll get to that here in a bit. Mouthfeel, 3 out of 5. Not sure that I fully understand this, but it says medium light body and moderate level of carbonation. A touch of astringency, maybe from the roasted malt. Fine, that's good. I would have liked to had a little bit more points there, but you know, I don't. There was nothing noted about anything that was incorrect in the beer. And again, this is only the second beer in flight, and they're shooting for world-class porter to get those upper echelon numbers. So the overall impression was 7 out of 10. Said, a very good beer, would like to see a little bit more maltiness. The malt level, or the roast level is great, but the backbone could be a little bit further. Well made, cheers. So very good notes from this judge, BJCP certified. Actually, I believe works at High Gravity Brew. So I thought that this was great feedback. I agree 100% with the maybe could use a little bit more backbone. I actually thought that it had a lot of that, but just in my previous post on Flow Brewing, I did the Dickey's Ale against the Marshall's Big Jamoke and the Deschutes Black Butte Porter. And, you know, when you start to compare those beers across the board, actually, I thought that it measured up as well, if not better, than the Deschutes Black Butte Porter. I don't think this score reflects that, and I probably am biased. And then I like the Marshall's Big Jamoke the best out of those three beers. I thought it had that body, that backbone, the roast to it with the malt body to back it up, and get that well balanced flavor. So that was the first judge's comments. My takeaway from that is take that recipe, maybe add a few crystal malts to beef up the background. Munich malt could add it some toffees and maybe some biscuit flavors to it, give it a little bit more body. And then I'm gonna just scale that up just a little bit percentage wise. Don't want to like double it, do anything crazy. Just start nudging it up and enter the beer again and see what kind of feedback. And I'm gonna get different feedback based on who tastes it on any given day. This particular beer got 30 out of 50. On the classic example, it was better than average. For flawless, on the technical merit scale, it was right in line. And on the intangibles, it wasn't wonderful, it wasn't lifeless, it was just right in the middle. So I think that accurately describes this beer. There's nothing about it that makes it great, and there's nothing about it that, makes it bad. It's a very, very good drinkable beer. And I think if you put most of the beers that are made commercially into this competition, they're especially in the porters, they're going to come out very similar to this. I could be wrong, but that's sort of my take. For me, a little bit disappointing. I wanted to get 35 to 40 range instead of the low 30s, and this got right at 30. So got a little bit of work to do there, and I can kind of discuss what I'm going to be doing to see if we can get into that range that I'm looking for. Second judge, non-BJCP category, did check astringent, puckering, lingering harshness or dryness in the finish aftertaste, harsh, graininess, huskiness. I think that's a characteristic noted by the previous drinker, but I don't think it's outside of character for the style. I think that it's okay. I think that's his perception, and he felt like checking that box, which is fine. Here, got 8 out of 12, so a little bit better than the BJCP judge. Had noted sweet malt aroma, lots of chocolate, little roast, hop aroma present. Appearance, I got 2 out of 3 from this judge. It said hazy, dark, brown with ruby highlights, decent head retention. Not sure what it would take to get the 3, but it is black and opaque. Can't see through it. Good head retention. So for me, I would have scored it a 3. I haven't done the BJCP tasting yet, so that's my that's what I would have done, but it is my beer. Flavor did better here than I did with the BJCP judge, and which I like. It says roast overpowers the malt and chocolate flavors, light hops in flavor, almost a burnt toffee flavor in the finish. I don't think those notes are as representative of the beer. I don't think the roast overpowered. I thought that it had a good roast, and I thought that the hops balanced that roast very well, but I think with the bitterness and the dark malts and the roast, it does leave that bitterness and the astringency in the background, and I think that's probably what this taster was getting there. For mouthfeel, 3 out of 5, roasty dry finish, medium body, light carbonation. I was worried about the carbonation. That's another thing about entering these competitions. I think if you drink this beer out of my kegerator, it gets 2 to 3 points better. Anyways, I really struggle with the beer gun and getting the beer in bottles. I worry about things like oxygen. I've drank my beer, I've taken it to the Red Earth Brewers meetings, and I don't think that it's portrayed well when I do that. So again, those are the things that I like about doing this. It's I know that as I do it and I practice, that will get zoned in. So nothing to worry about there. Just something to do. Overall impression 7 out of 10. Overall good. However, the roast is overpowering and all the other flavors, causing a harsh, dry finish. Beer finished just how I wanted it to finish. I'm happy with that. I think it was good. This person gave me on the stylistic accuracy right in the middle. Technical merit was not flawless or significant flaws right in the middle. And then intangibles more on the lifeless side, which I would actually agree with. I think that a beer like this needs to get aged in a barrel. And it really needs that sweetness in the background to help stick up with some of the bitterness from the roasted malts and from the hops. And thinking about this, I would use a hop with a lower alpha acid for my bittering hop instead of using like a Summit or something like that with all that bitterness. I guess if you use that in the right balance, it's good, but maybe something more like I don't know, maybe a Kent Goldings or a Northern Brewer. I need to kind of look at it, but something with an earthy that's more in the 7 to 10 alpha acid range as opposed to the 17, like the Summit, could help some of that bitterness and help soften that beer up and give it the background hop flavor that you're looking for, but maybe not make it quite so bitter with the roasted malts. That being said, it's kind of hard to say until I brewed it and tasted it. I'm not real sure, because at the end of the day, the bittering hops to bitter the beer. Enough said. So overall, great beer, great feedback. Agree 100%. Basically, with the sentiment of this beer, I wanted it to be better. I didn't think that it was good enough. I hoped it was, but the things to improve this beer. Looky there. Harley's interested in the beer as well. Things to improve this beer. Got to get the sweetness up with the grain bill. It's the only recipe change that I would make. Other than that, I got to get the mash pH right. So I need to start focusing on water treatments and making sure that that mash pH is right. Get the sparge water right. Make sure that I'm sparging at the right rate. And I would like to get a pump to recirculate that mash, and I think that would help clarify the beer a little bit, even though this is a dark, opaque beer, just to recirculate that grain bed. One, to help a little bit with efficiency, get a little bit more flavors out of those malts, maybe prevent it from being a little bit so lifeless, maybe enhance the flavor complexity, and also get a little bit higher alcohol levels out of this beer. And then, so after we've recirculated, we've got the water treatments with the pH. I need to get a little bit better boil, a little bit better Maillard reaction, a little bit stronger boil for the full hour. With that being said, then slam it, cool it down. Don't really have a problem with that. I think I can improve it with a pump and pumping cold water through there. That'll lock in the aromas of the beer. But again, I don't think I had a problem there. And then pitch a great yeast starter. Get my pitching rate right. Pitch it at the right temp. And then let it hold. And then after that first, 3 to 5 days of fermentation, when it's really rolling, make sure that I'm paying attention to my times and I'm ramping that temp up 3 to 5 degrees to reduce any diacetyl notes and just to help that beer finish out, finish dry. So those are the things that I know need to happen. It was a good beer, not a great beer, and there was no flaws with it, no sanitation issues. So overall, we know what we're doing. We just got to get invest the money and the time to get the equipment right, and invest in my time that I'm making the beers to do it right, and I think that will ensure that once we get those water treatments down and we lock in that process and make sure that we're paying attention to the details, I think this score will really go up. So thanks for tuning in. Hope this didn't bore you. I hope that it helps for those that are kind of looking to enter some competitions and getting some feedback on their beers. And I hope everybody's out there brewing, enjoying good craft beer over the holidays. Cheers. Thanks for tuning in. And please send any thoughts or comments down in the show notes. So cheers, and we'll talk to you soon.